and welcome to Tech Tips with Sold Out Media. I'm Amanda, and today, by your request, we're going to put the C70 up against the EOS R5. We got our hands on another R5 just to play with for the weekend. So we're going to test the dynamic range between these two cameras. I have both of them set to the highest 4K that they can do. I don't have this guy set in the 8K mode at the moment, but as far as they can go in the 4K. So not the lower resolution of the 4K, but the upper resolution of the 4K. And all eye on both of these cameras. And this one here is set to the highest recording mode, C-Log for both. I have today 24-70 on the C70 RF lens. Because the C70 is a 35mm sensor, it'll crop in on it a little bit. So I put a 70-200 RF on this guy because we'll be able to match the framing a little bit better. They're very comparable lenses. Every Tech Tips we shoot with these two lenses on EOS Rs, and we see very little difference in the edit suite. So the test should be pretty close. All right, just to get us out the gate, I was shooting with this guy in slow-mo 4K yesterday, and we shot for hours with him, no issues. The runtime on the battery is 3 hours. I know that they fixed some problems with firmware updates with this camera, the R5, but I don't know if it will match up with runtime with this guy. We'll see how far we get today, and maybe do a side-by-side, just running, filming nothing comparison later with them. All right, so by the way, Linus is our cameraman today and my model. Say hi, Linus.
Hello.
All right, come with me. Let's go test this out.
All right, started raining. Going back to the car. Oh my God.
Wow, that was pretty crazy. So Linus and I, we were right here in this spot, and we saw some ducks. We were just about to take some pictures of some ducks. Actually, I got a couple of shots when it started to crack, thunder and lightning, and hail started to come down on the ducks. So that's why we rushed out of here super fast before we could finish our tests. But it's okay. We did some dynamic range tests here before the lightning chased us out. And what we discovered was that both the C70 and the R are really good at recovering highlights and shadows. I was able to get quite a lot of shadows and highlights back and colors back in both cameras. They're pretty equal. Again, you can see more from this shot that I have by the lake. I was able to equally recover as much information. In one way, I want to give an edge to the R because I felt like I got better color out of it. But in all fairness, I'm not a colorist. I do color live broadcast, but that's a completely different thing than putting LUTs in cinema footage. If you're going to shoot with this camera in log, I would recommend that you really understand what you're doing with log. I do think that there is, in some ways, some advantages to the C70. You have some tools in it like false color to help you get your exposure right. Now, I found it really difficult to equally overexpose these two cameras because, well, there was no way really to tell on the R how overexposed I was except for by sight. I mean, there was waveforms, but they only take you so far in exposing colors and shadows and tones and everything like that. However, I did take this other video, and you can see Linus walking down to the lake. You can see the blues in the skies and the highlights in the lake, and some of the shadows on Linus I was able to recover and bring up quite nicely, actually. And I think both shots look really close together. So you really can match these cameras if you work hard at it. Afterwards, we went out again with the R and the C70, and this time I had Jake with me. And we actually tested a little bit of the IBIS, and we tested a little bit of the focus tracking. Now you can actually see in the focus tracking footage, I'll put them up side by side. I used my iPhone to show actually where on the screen the little dot was. There's no eye tracking per se in the same sense on the C70 as there is on the R, but both cameras held on to Jake perfectly well. I actually didn't see too much of an advantage one way or the other. Only thing is that R hangs onto the eye whereas the C70 hangs onto the face. So advantage to the R. I mean, it is a great camera. We'll move on now to the IBIS. The C70 has two different ways that you can do in-body stabilization or digital stabilization, not IBIS. And that is with a 16 millimeter sensor crop. And that actually works quite well. I did find that there was a little bit of jitter, and the camera recommends that you're shooting in 180 shutter to really get the best out of that crop. But if you look at the shot walking side by side with the R, you can actually see that they're both pretty close, really. And I almost would give the advantage to the R, but looking back at it, there's a lot of cameraman person Jacob bouncing up and down when he's trying to follow me. And honestly, I think that investing in a gimbal, even though they have the stabilization in them and they're quite good, is a better option than just trying to follow somebody. However, if you look at these shots of flowers that we took, you can actually see that handheld on the flowers, both cameras looked awesome. I am going to give the edge to the R5 though, because I felt that that footage was really dead steady. And that's just Jake standing there focusing on the camera as hard as he can. Edge to the R5, but again, both cameras performed excellent. We did a battery test with them. It didn't overheat. We ran it for over 30 minutes, or not 30 minutes, I think it was 27 or 28 minutes, and then it cut the clip, and then I was able to start again. Just shy of 30 minutes, the R5 has stopped, and the C70 keeps going. But I'm not sure if it's a card reason or if it's just because it was the maximum time allowed to record. It looks like I could keep recording afterwards, so long as I had space on the card, so definitely not overheating this guy. Now, this is Sweden, and it's not summer yet, so I think it was maybe 11 degrees outside when we did this, but still, I was able to continue on shooting without any overheating problems or any restrictions at all on the video. That being said, there was not as much battery life, not as much memory card usage. I mean, I was shooting with the C70 in its highest possible format, and it still wasn't taking up the space that the R footage takes up. That R5 codecs, it's so heavy. And even looking back at it, trying to fix the color correction in DaVinci, it was making my computer chug along, whereas the C70 just went butter smooth. Again, in the 10-bit codec. It was excellent. So the C70 has the advantage. It's got a harder, longer battery life. I mean, you can run that for 3 hours on the stock battery. You can get a bigger battery that goes for 5 hours. It's an excellent tool. You also have the advantages of the in-body XLR ports, even though they're mini XLRs. You have the in-body ND filters. As a videographer, I'm really in love with the C70. I'm glad that I chose the C70 over the R5 as a videographer. As a photographer, I miss the R5 every time I shoot a gig. So there you have it. I think side by side, these two cameras are great. And it's really hard to call a winner. But in the categories that we mentioned, I think the R5 had the edge on the autofocus or the focus tracking. I think it had the edge on the stabilization. I wasn't able to test slow-mo because I wasn't using a CF Express card, which you need apparently to do slow-mo, and the high-Q HQ version of the R's 4K and 8K. So maybe next time I'll be able to take a look at those. But I hope that you liked this video. I hope that it answered some of your questions. And if you have more questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. We love to look at what you guys say and try to find ways to answer the questions. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.